So my background is in remote sensing. Well, if I even go back a little further, my father was someone working in chemical spectroscopy, studying the properties of molecules with lasers and things like that. My mother was kinesiotherapist, so paramedical, and I grew up having a lot of curiosity for natural phenomena, but also deep disaffection towards math. I discovered that math was, maybe it was the way it was taught, absolutely abstract. I typically hated math. I enjoyed biology and physics a lot, and geography above all. Geography was really the area where I excelled most, and also philosophy, in fact. I was so adamantly detached from math and other things that I said, I don't want to hear about hardcore sciences. So I went to university and I started with a BSc in geography, which happens that in Europe, geography is more seen of as a social science than it is in the US, where it's more on the biophysical side. And then after 3 years of that, I started getting bored again, because I thought, those geographers, they just spend their time talking and saying, yeah, but the reality is more complex. And but I say, okay, it's complex, and then what? What do you do about it? And I felt frustrated again, so I went on to try and combine a more, how could I say, quantitative training by going for a master's in remote sensing, and then for a PhD in remote sensing as well. Since I was born a French citizen, at the time when I was born, we still had mandatory military service. So after a certain point in time of studying, you have to just stop studies and go and do it. But the interesting option with them, I don't have any problem with being in military, but the option was that you can do it as a scientist as well in a collaborating country. So since I had so many connections in Mali, I looked up for, I more or less crafted a position for myself with some of our friends in the National Agric Research System in Mali, and I applied and was selected. So I went for 2 years to work for the National Agric Research System. And within that time, that was in the late 90s, I realized that we had really a lack of capacity in everything that deals with GIS and remote sensing and modeling. So I approached ICRISAT, which was one of the natural partners of IER. IER is the National Agric Research System of Mali. And I told them, well, you know what? I propose that we develop a joint facility. And interacting with ICRISAT scientists, we came to the conclusion that we could have an arrangement where ICRISAT would post a full-time scientist in the NARS, so an outposted scientist in the national system. And the NARS in exchange would give free facilities, so free, no electricity charge, etc. So since I developed that collaboration, when it was open, I applied for it. I knew it better than anyone, so I was selected. And I stayed in this very same office where I was as a national scientist, but now working for ICRISAT embedded in the national system. And I spent about 10 years, the early 2000s, to build capacity in that lab.